Hello, I am Chris McKee, and you are tuned in to my feature presentation, my 500 best songs, or what I would consider my 500, top 500 favorites. And in this presentation, it's kind of inspired to show, people what a lot of the big influential songs are to me, and some people might be surprised. But it's also because of Rolling Stone magazine recently making their top 500. I was like, it's a lot of work to sit there and make 500, but I felt there were, a lot of things I would have done differently. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing and I'll make my own sort of presentation. Now, with this rule, keep in mind that every artist only gets one song and it's 500 counting down in what I like overall best based on the quality of music and its overall impact. So, starting off the list now at 500 is Lil Wayne with Mr. Carter. Now, the reason I picked this song for number 500 is I'm actually not the biggest fan of Lil Wayne. He is considered one of the greatest, best-selling, and most influential hip-hop artists or rappers of his time. But what I will say is I don't find that the commercial sellout approach is really my main thing. With that said, the praise and respect and positives I would give the song are I really like the beat. The sped up sample is really great, and he actually has very good lyrics, better than a lot of other songs on it. And Jay-Z is the featured artist. Now, the irony of the song is they're both Mr. Carter, Sean Carter and Dwayne Carter. So that's why it's kind of ironic, and for that reason, it's number 500. Next up is number 499 with Nicole Scherzinger's song Whatever You Like, featuring T.I. Now, she is the lead singer of the Pussycat Dolls, and I'm not the biggest fan of the group, but I do find that for a solo song, this was actually pretty good. And it wasn't like a major hit. In fact, actually, they say that's why her debut album got delayed, because the main single, the first one, was a flop. But T.I. kills the lyrics on it, and it actually has a really funky, upbeat, kind of danceable beat, which I even danced to at high school dances, and it has nostalgia for me. But I like that the song shows that she actually was the leader of the group because she had a very dynamic, unique, and distinct voice, and a very powerful range that almost had a haunting quality to it. And that's why I prefer that song over the Pussycat Dolls. Like, Whatever You Like is definitely 499 for me. Number 498 is War with their song Lowrider, and many people have heard it and recognize it almost instantly because it was used, part of it anyway, for George Lopez's show when he had his show, like his TV show. It was actually part of the theme song. But what makes that song great, it's kind of simple, it's cheesy, there's not too much to it that really makes it so fascinating or musically dynamic or groundbreaking, but it has some really nice smooth use of the cowbell as far as steel drums too. Very nice percussion. And the song is great because it's kind of the first example of an anthem for, like, having hydraulics in the cars when you're driving along, and that's what they would call low riders, those that drive them. So it's kind of the anthem for that, and it's just that cool, smooth, mellow, groovy, kind of laid back tune, and it's very good, and that's why it's 498. Number 497 brings us to the Smashing Pumpkins, the alternative rock band of the 90s, with their song Today. Now, I really like that song because it has a melancholy twinge to it, and Billy Corgan is actually a very great singer, songwriter, and guitar player. Very underrated, I find. And the reason is because the Smashing Pumpkins came out in an era where it was mostly grunge bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam kind of taking over the airwaves. You also had your other bands like Green Day doing punk, and they really just couldn't compete with a lot of them, so they were often overlooked. But in some ways, the Smashing Pumpkins, because of Billy Corgan, their leader, were musically more deep and profound, and I feel they're a very underrated gem, and today it has that sound like it could be a perfect day, but yet deep down you're hiding pain inside, so it's just not right. And for that reason, it's 497. Smashing Pumpkins today. 496 brings us to Paris Hilton with her song Stars Are Blind. And some people are probably like, what? Really? They're shocked. They're probably like, why is that there? Like, really? You like that? And the reason is the beat. And actually, for as ditzy and, kind of clueless as she gives off the vibe in many of her other, like, entertainment work, we'll call it, like the reality shows The Simple Life, they're pretty lame and stupid and cheesy. But she actually can sing really good. The lyrics actually have a real profound message about the vanity of how people are in Hollywood. And the beat has that almost Caribbean mellow summertime vibe that just all together, it actually is a really good song. And considering it's coming from her, it's actually surprising how good it is. That's why it doesn't rank higher. It's not incredible, but it's actually surprising just how good it is. So, 496, The Stars Are Blind, Paris Hilton. Number 495 is Nicki Minaj with Your Love, and that's why she's not higher on the list once again, because I wouldn't really consider her the greatest female rapper, and all her singing has auto-tune, but compared to a lot of the other cheesier, more big hits later on she would do, like Anaconda and Super Bass, I find that this actually had kind of like a cute, more romantic message. The beat was really good, like compared to some of the other ones, and I felt like even her rapping was the sharpest it's ever been. Basically, when she started out, she was still kind of underground. She had a raw edge to her, and she was kind of the only female rapper really doing her thing at the time. But in this game, there has been others that are better, and that's why it wouldn't rank higher, but I still say that that's probably her best song. So for that reason, Nicki Minaj, Your Love, falls in at 495. Next, at 494, we have Jennifer Lopez with her song, Get Right. Now, I actually am not the biggest fan of her either. I find that she's a much better actress than she is singer. But she's done some good singing in examples like the movie Selena. Now, the reason I picked Get Right is that was actually a very popular song back when I used to have like elementary school and high school dances, and it was kind of a catchy, song to remember back then. And what I really loved about that song in particular was the very jazzy beat to it with the trumpet and stuff. I mean, that trumpet was banging. If I had to like anything about the song or any of Jennifer Lopez's songs, then definitely it's the trumpet for Get Right. And that's why overall I'd rank it at 494. At 493, we have rapper Juelz Santana with his hit song, Oh Yes. Now, it has a very high sped up sample of Mr. Postman. It's got a very catchy beat, and I like it. It's cool. And it was actually a very big hit for him. Probably his most well known song, biggest hit single. What I love about that song is it shows, even though it was a big hit, like how real and non-commercial Juelz Santana is as a rapper. Even with a mainstream catchy kind of upbeat beat like that, he's being just real and straight up. He's not sugarcoating nothing. He's very blunt, but he's quite a good rapper and very underrated compared to a lot of the other ones nowadays. So for that reason, everything included, Juelz Santana, Oh Yes, falls in at number 493. 492 is actually an older jazz piece composed by Charles Luckieth Roberts, aka Lucky Roberts, and he had massive hands that could stretch like a 14th on the keyboard, so he was a very good pianist and composer. The reason I chose Pork and Beans is it was his most famous composition to be covered by many other artists, such as Willie the Lion Smith and U.B. Blake and many others, and it's very memorable. It's incredibly hard to play. It sounds like the most intense shit you ever heard, especially for its time period. Like, you could tell the man could play because of his hands. And I mean, he was a great businessman. He actually died a millionaire and saved his money because he had been a child star, like playing piano and acting in productions of Uncle Tom's Cabin, because this was a segregated era. But for being the man at such an early time, Lucky Roberts, 492, pork and beans. That's you. 491 is Canada's own and Toronto's own, Snow. And he actually is what we would call a reggae artist. A lot of people think he's a rapper, but he was the first non-Jamaican or Caribbean like reggae artist to come out of Toronto. And he's a white guy, but he's actually has Jamaican in his family, and he grew up in a Jamaican neighborhood mixed with Irish. So, and the reason Informer, it's a very catchy classic 90s song. It's a very good reggae jam. It's actually the best-selling reggae single of all time, even above Bob Marley and stuff, which is incredible. Nobody ever expected that. And the song is about, like, getting into a bar fight. He stabbed somebody, and he was in jail, actually, when they were, like, releasing the single and making that. Sadly, Snow never duplicated the success of Informer with other later songs, but he released albums like Mind on the Moon. He was cool. But still, for being a classic jam, Snow's Informer falls in at 491. 490 is Drake with his song Light Up. Now, Drake is another one of those cats that he's not really one of my favorite MCs. I find that his first album, Thank Me Later, was probably his best. But if I was to pick a favorite song on that record as well, it would be Light Up. The beat is good, even though he's singing very auto-tuney stuff. The lyrics are real, his verse is very good, and Jay-Z is the featured artist who once again delivers a phenomenal verse. And it's actually talking about the pressures of not selling out and trying to stay real despite the pressures everybody in the industry wants you to sell out, to be commercial, to be mainstream, and that sometimes you have to just give and take, and then other times you have to just give in completely. But it's cool because Jay-Z seems to stand his ground, and even Drake does. He holds his own on that song, so that's why it's 490. Drake, Light Up. 489 is the Barenaked Ladies with their song 1 Week. Now, this has a very powerful feeling of nostalgia for me. I actually knew this song before I had really listened to the Barenaked Ladies or heard much of them or knew who they were. Like, I think at that point I had heard their song, If I Had $1 Million. But what really amazed me is, as a kid watching the Digimon movie, they put that song in the soundtrack in a very brief part. And I remember, like, oh, that's a catchy song. And it was so funny and ironic because of where it was. I always wondered what it was. It wasn't until I watched, like, some Much Music special where they played a clip of it. I was like, that's the song from Digimon. So it has a very powerful nostalgia feeling. And it's a nice, real song from them because it's funny, it's got melancholy, and it's almost like that sad sort of breakup song, right? But it's one of their best songs, and that's why 489 Barenaked Ladies 1 Week. Next up, at 488, we have the incredibly talented Sarah Vaughan with her song Send in the Clowns. Now, the reason I picked this song is because Sarah Vaughan was actually a very underrated but beautiful and talented singer of her era. And she's often overlooked because there was so much competition at the time, like with Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald. But she was very good, she was very talented, and in fact, she was often regarded as being very cool, like one of the guys. In fact, they decided, like, if they got the gap between her teeth fixed and they, put her in some nice makeup and a dress, they would help her sell more records, which did work. And she was talented. She was quite respected. I mean, she toured with Louis Armstrong when he went to Europe, and very great artist. So that's why she's number 488 with Send in the Clowns, Sarah Vaughan. 487 comes in with MC Hammer and his hit, very memorable, I'm sure you know, even though he was a one-hit wonder, Can't Touch This. Now, The beat wasn't revolutionary or groundbreaking. He sampled it from Rick James' Super Freak. In fact, he got sued for it. They had to settle out of court. And the lyrics, even though he wasn't swearing, they were simple, but they were good because it actually helped him sell more records because kids could dig it. But what really showed what a talented artist Hammer was the dancing. And that's what everybody remembers is he had those wild parachute pants on and he would just rip the dance moves. He even said like he was influenced by people like Bill Robinson, the Nicholas brothers, and sadly he never had another hit because his second song actually sampled Prince. He got sued, had to pull the song, and he spent all his money and went broke. But despite all that, he did make a great song with Can't Touch This, so that's why it falls in at 487. 486 is the Black Eyed Peas with their song Hey Mama. Now, they have a lot of bigger hit singles that actually would probably be considered more the general mainstream's opinion of their best song. But the reason I chose Hey Mama is once again it borders onto a feeling of nostalgia. I remember hearing it at the old elementary school dances, and oddly enough, they weren't big until because they had an album first where Fergie hadn't joined them, and then they got Fergie to join them. They did a song called Shut Up, and that was their first really big hit song. Now, their second single was Hey Mama. I really liked it. I liked the beat, the way it was. I preferred it over Shut Up and a lot of their other songs. But until they made a song, Where Is the Love with Justin Timberlake, they were actually considered they were heading in the direction of one hit wonders, but now they've had lots of hits, so that wasn't true, and they're pretty good overall, so that's why I put them at number 486. 485 comes in with Harry Nilsson and his song Without You. Now, this is a very memorable ballad because even people who don't listen to music like from back then, and even people who weren't from back then, have all heard this song because can't live if living is without you. And see, the funny thing is, it wasn't actually his song first. It was written by other people, but the song won a Grammy, and it was the second big hit single for him because he had already had a hit internationally with his song, like lots of people probably heard that, the one where it's like you put the lime in the coconut and shake it all about. So he was a very diverse artist. He was very talented, and sadly his career didn't really have much success after Without You, but I mean he was good friends with John Lennon and he was a well-respected artist in his own right, so that's why Harry Nilsson Without You falls in at 485. 484 is Digital Underground with their song Same Song. Now, a lot of people know Digital Underground because of their big hit single, The Humpty Dumpty Dance, which I consider kind of more the mainstream poppy thing that did make them a success, but they were very underappreciated and respected and almost labeled as a gimmick for it. And that's why I like a song like Same Song because it kind of shows what good production they had and that they actually could rap some serious shit when it came down to it. So this song is also an incredible groundbreaking feat because it was the first song Tupac Shakur ever recorded on, and he worked with Digital Underground a lot through the later years. They produced songs like Trapped from his first album Tupacalypse Now, which he would go on to make, and then I Get Around too, even because he went to the guy Shock G and was like, I need a beat that's funky like that. So that's why that falls in at 484. 483 is the classic rock anthem Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf. Now, everybody knows this. It's kind of one of those old 60s rock songs that you imagine somebody riding down a highway about to go on an adventure on a motorcycle, you know, wind's blowing around them, you know, going wild. But I've heard this song in so many commercials, and ever since like I was a small kid, I'd say it almost seems like that song has had a symbolism wherever I've heard it used, that it's the anthem of crazy adventure is going to go down, and the song really captures that. So in a cool way, it's become the anthem of Born to Be Wild because you're going on an adventure. I love the sound. It's very psychedelic. It's very classic rock 60s. And that's why I would put that as number 483. 482 is Tim McGraw with his song Live Like You Were Dying. Now, Tim McGraw is a very good singer songwriter. He's also a great actor. I've seen him do some great work in some movie pictures. Seems like a very cool guy. I mean, he's even crossed over into other genres, worked with rappers like Nelly, and did some incredible stuff. But I picked Live Like You Were Dying because he has a lot of more popular, mainstream, well known songs. But that one, to me, always stuck out as that's one of the best songs that, from a profound songwriter standpoint, he really makes a good point. That you got to make the most of your life because you don't know how much time you're given. Like, he tells the story of a guy, he thinks he's going to die. So, he goes skydiving, Rocky Mountain climbing. He does all these crazy things just because he wants to live, like, make the most of his time. And then he finds out he's okay. But the end of the song is the revelation is live like you were dying because then you realize how valuable life is. So that's why that falls in at 482. Very good song. 481 is R. Kelly with his song Ignition, and I know a lot of people hate R. Kelly because of the whole scandals with underage girls and all that, and I don't really approve of that. And that's part of why this song isn't very high on the list, is lack of respect for him. But if we're looking at, is he a piece of shit as a person? Yes. Is he a good artist that's actually made some incredible music? Yes. So I want people, when they're watching this, to sometimes make that distinction that this is the case. Now, this is one of those classic catchy club anthems that, for a hit from him, it actually is one of those songs that everybody seems to know, that you'll always find like at a party, like to kind of relax and set the mood. And for that reason, it's one of those golden R&B jams of its time. And that's why, despite how terrible he is, I still would put it at 481. 480 goes to Bruno Mars with his song Treasure. Now, this song actually, to me, always had like a Michael Jackson, like 80s pop vibe, but I was really digging it because it's groovy, it's kind of funky. But what I like about Bruno Mars and what the song shows is he's a good dancer, that, especially you see that in the video, but the song shows that he's very diverse as an artist, that you've heard songs where he kind of mixes reggae with stuff, and he's mixed all sorts of other genres. Now, I'm not a big fan of Uptown Funk. I feel like, as much as both of them are great artists, they didn't mix very well with that. But other than that, I think Bruno Mars is actually capable of expanding into rap and all sorts of any modern genre. He's just got a great voice for it. I've even heard stuff that sounds more on the rock side, which is great. And for that reason, even though he's mainstream, he seems pretty cool to me. I put him at number 480 with Treasure. 479 goes to a techno group from Finland with their song Acid Jazz Evening, and they're called Tempest. Now, this is actually a song that became most famous originally because Timbaland got sued by them because he sampled it in the Nelly Furtado song Do It. And Do It is actually probably one of my favorite Nelly Furtado songs. But I prefer the original Tempest version because as just a composition of electronic synthesizer music with almost like video game sounding synthesizers, it is the most beautiful, energetic, pumping, inspiring piece you'll ever hear of its genre. And I felt like I should put something that is kind of considered techno electronic music into this. So if I really was to sit there on a piece like I actually like, that every time I've heard, like, yeah, that's a jam, that's groovy, right? Then it definitely would be 479 Acid Jazz Evening by The Tempest. 478 goes to Destiny's Child member Kelly Rowland with her second big hit single, Like This, featuring rapper Eve. Now, a lot of people thought she was just going to be a one-hit wonder after she did the song with Nelly, Dilemma. And it was a pretty good song, but I actually preferred Like This, and I'm glad she came out with a new album and actually showed she had more hits. Because in that video alone, she honestly, as much as they always considered Beyonce to be the most beautiful of the group, I actually felt like Kelly looked better than her in that video. Like, she held her own. She really was bang on. Eve delivers a very good verse. The beat is catchy. It's a very relaxed, mellow groove, and Kelly sings it very nice too. And it feels like there's an honest, sincere quality that's why it's not as big of a hit as some of Beyonce's stuff, but it's a very good song, and it's definitely Kelly Rowland's best song. So it's 478. 477 is Twista with his jam Slow Jams, and that features Jamie Foxx and Kanye West. Both are actually very good on that, because that was around the time Kanye West started out, and Jamie Foxx sings incredible on it. Now, Twista, he is regarded as one of the fastest rappers, but because that beat is kind of slow, you can actually understand all this complex, fast rhyming and flow delivery that he's delivering. And that's why it's his most famous song, it's his biggest hit, and it's probably the best example for an easy listener to really get into Twister and appreciate him as a rapper, as an artist. And Kanye West production is on that. His verse is very good. And like I said, Jamie Foxx is just kind of the icing on the cake. Plus the video is cool because it's got actress Aisha Tyler in it too. So that's 477. 476 is John Mayer with Waiting on the World to Change. Now, he is very mainstream. He has a lot of other songs that did go very high on the charts and did better, but this song shows not only what a good singer he is, but what a good songwriter he is. He could play the guitar good too, but the song really is, the way it's written, you can kind of tell it's not meant to be a mainstream hit, that it's more of a social message about if we want the world to change and be a better place, we can't just sit here and wait sometimes, but then other times it's like when it seems hopeless, we're forced to just sit there and wait. So it's a lot of different perspectives of, like, wanting the world to be a better place and kind of chasing after our desires. It's very profound. And I think, as much as he kind of gets disregarded, that song really shows that he's up there with, like, your Bob Dylans and even your John Lennon's as far as songwriters. Like, it's very good. It's incredible in that sense. So that's why it is 476. The 475 spot goes to Young Buck with his song Bonafide Hustler, featuring 50 Cent and Tony Yayo. Now, Tony Yayo delivers the killer ending verse that just makes the song, which that is a huge part of why it is Young Buck's choice on this list, since I'm only picking one song from every artist. 50 Cent delivers a great hook. His verse is very good, and I actually consider it to be one of Young Buck's best verses. So the combination of that is why I chose to make Bonafide Hustler 475. Now, another thing to consider about it is the beat is very upbeat, and it was also one of the songs to really show that G-Unit as a rap crew, no matter which member you were throwing into the groove, he could hold his own. Like 50 held his own, Young Buck held his own, so did Tony Yayo, and he's the big killing ender at it. So that's why it's 475. 474 goes to Jamiroquai with his song Virtual Insanity, which everybody always remembers because it's very catchy. It's been in movies, it's been played a lot on radio. It was his biggest hit song, and in the music video, the furniture is kind of moving around and he's dancing around it, but everything, it almost seems like it's moving backwards in slow motion, so it's very cool and trippy, and it's almost funny and amusing in that regard. Now, it's funny because he had another hit song called Just Dance that was a number one in the UK, but he never duplicated the success of this. So once again, it was a one-hit wonder. But with this song, I'm not discriminating. If they had a song that really was a real gem, then, you got to recognize it for what it is. So that's why it falls in at 474. It's not higher, but also he made it regarded in an interview that he sold his soul to the devil, and maybe he did for one hit, because where is he now? Who knows? Nobody really knows. 473 is How Soon Is Now, originally written by the Smiths, but my version I picked is Love Spit Now, which is the theme for the original Charm show. Now, I love it because the song is originally about witchcraft and it's got a very dark, psychedelic, blues, heavy metal kind of rock folky vibe to it, right? And the lyrics are all about it, like the elements of the earth and sort of the idea of Wicca, like, the forces of nature having their own sort of higher powers. And it's a very fascinating and interesting song. What I love about Love Spit Love's version that really ups the stake and takes it to a whole new level is because they're using a lot of keyboards and synthesizers. It sounds more supernatural and otherworldly for that reason, which really captures the idea of the song. And for that reason, that's why I put it at 473. 472 goes to T.I. with his song Watch What You Say to Me. Now, I picked this song because Jay-Z is another featured verse on this that does an incredible job. But the beat is very bluesy, it's very funky, it's groovy, and it really shows that even though T.I. has had a lot of major success, he could really hold his own lyrically as a MC or a rapper with legends like Jay-Z and be equal caliber. As you hear on that song, they're equal caliber. In fact, they're actually both ripping shots at Lil Wayne because he was kind of making talk about how he was the best, so they were kind of like, watch out for us, we're equal, we could contend with you, right? And they both do a great job on that song. So for that reason, that's why I put it at 472. T.I. Watch What You Say to Me. 471 goes to the Sex Pistols with their song Anarchy in the UK. Now, the Sex Pistols are forever known as that iconic punk band that they were real rebels. They lived the image of punk, like opposed authority, dressed very vulgar, swore, cursed, did all the punk lifestyles. Now, you have the ideas of the Ramones and the Clash as also being other punk bands, but they were quite toned down. Now, because the Sex Pistols in many ways were so controversial and they had such a bad reputation because of certain scandals involving their lead singer Sid Vicious and whatnot, they're often overlooked and discredited. But really, they're not only the founders of punk, but they're pretty much the epitome of punk rock as a whole. And without them, we wouldn't really have the blueprint of what the Clash and the Ramones later would develop. So that's why they're 471. Next at 470, we have the Boss, Rick Ross, and his song Freemason. It also features Jay-Z, a lot of songs on this list do, you'll notice, and John Legend. Now, they all do an incredible job on this song. The beat is bang, it's fantastic, it's epic, it has a lot of great breaks. John Legend is really pouring his heart out singing stuff, and it's almost like they're toying the idea of them being Freemasons because of the rumors and the speculation of Jay-Z joining the Illuminati, people like Rick Ross, and a lot of higher up big artists, right? So it's almost like they're testing you and they're tempting you to think it more, but they're like, how far can they push the envelope and really make you wonder, are they or aren't they? And it's a very funny play on the song. It's very cool, and it's overall just an incredibly well put together song. So that's why it falls in at 470. Number 469 is Mozart with the Concerto number 1 in B flat major. Now, with this song, I chose this piece because obviously a lot of people have heard of the great Amadeus Mozart. But this piece in particular is the most famous, well-known one, and it's also what I consider one of the most beautiful ones because it really was designed from an influence of all the other classical musicians in Europe at the time. And that was something that Mozart did not only as an instrumentalist but as a composer so much better than a lot of the other ones of his time. That's why he's considered, even though he was considered a bit crazy out there, he was the most diverse as a classical composer, and that's what you see with great artists expanding into different genres and sounds. So that's why it falls in at 496. 468 goes to Hank Williams, very big country legend, with his song Hey Good Lookin'. Now, it's been covered many times, but I picked the original Hank Williams version because his version had enough simplicity and sort of captured the vibe and the essence of what the song is better than anybody else who did it after him. And you look at it, that was almost 100 years ago, if not that, and yet nobody has ever done it quite as good as him. We've had Hank Williams Jr., but nobody is quite the original, and that's what makes him a very distinct and profound artist of his genre. Now, I've tried to include every genre with this list, right? So no discriminating. And this song, it's very sweet and melancholy the way, he's taking such a simple statement and phrase and making it such a nice, pretty, optimistic tune with it. So that's why it falls in at 468. 467 goes to the 90s pop queen Britney Spears, and although I'm not the biggest fan because realistically she is more known for lip syncing than actually singing and recording in her performances. Like, all this stuff in the studio is edited and auto-tuned and pitch corrected, so it sounds nicer. Now, as far as her singing ability, she's not really the greatest. But I picked My Prerogative because that is actually one of her best songs. She sings it kind of more bluesy, which brings out a unique quality in her voice you don't usually hear. Plus, the way it's kind of more of a rockier, upbeat than Bobby Brown's original version, I actually like how the song kind of takes it up a notch and makes it more intense. And for that reason, I think that's kind of Britney Spears' best song, in my personal opinion, and one of her underrated gems at least. So for that reason, even though I'm not the biggest fan, I'll give Britney her due as the 90s pop queen and put her at 467. 466 is Foghat with their classic rock anthem Slow Ride. Now, this has been played in San Andreas like some of the other songs in this list, but it really is one of those songs that, like, as classic rock, you could put, just crank on the radio if you're going for a nice, slow, long drive through the country and you don't really know what you're going to expect on your adventure. Now, Foghat had a really great drummer. They had a very distinct sound. It was very psychedelic, and they weren't really the biggest group, but this was kind of one of their songs that really hit the mainstream radio because of its catchy, easy understandability and its appeal. Now, for that reason, it's not really like a groundbreaking, revolutionary heavy metal piece, but it's still a very distinct classic rock song that has made its mark. And for that reason, you get 466, Foghat. 465 goes to the ragtime composer Scott Joplin with Maple Leaf Rag. Now, this is the most famous and covered ragtime piece of all time, and it was one of the most important pieces of its era because it was one of the first times that an African American, like in the segregated era, was actually able to get a piece composed and have it circulated and have other jazz musicians and what would become jazz musicians and ragtimers and blues musicians all jamming out to this. So, and Maple Leaf was very popular. It was played by people like Fats Waller, it was played by Louis Armstrong, but Scott Joplin's original recording of it does it best because that's what really captures the time period and the essence of what ragtime was. And, from that we would later get jazz, and for its mark on history more than anything, 465. Now, a lot of people know Rob Zombie for being the director of horror films and stuff like that, but originally he had a band called White Zombie, and he even recorded some solo stuff. Now, the song that made 464 is Dragula with it's by Rob Zombie, and the reason I picked it is because it's often used in bar scenes or in party scenes where people are drinking, and it's one of his most famous and instantly recognizable pieces. He's made so much money off the royalty that He's pretty much not had to do as much music in the later years, and he's got to focus on movies, which is kind of cool. But it's very funny because a lot of people mispronounce it Dragula, but Dracula because it's similar. But in the music video, you see him have a drag race with dune buggies, so that's how you know it's actually Dragula, and it's a very intense, classic '90s heavy metal anthem, and it falls in, of course, at 464. 463 is the Canadian country queen Shania Twain, her song I'll Get You Good. Now, this song was one of the songs that really made mainstream masses and actually broke through the country barrier, and it was a song that got played on Much Music. It was one of the songs that really, I had the whole Up album that it was on, and it was a great record. And she actually recorded two versions of the album. Not a lot of people realized it. One with a countryer twinge, and one with a more popular alternative rock. Now, both versions were kind of distinct and good in their own way. I actually give credit to the song, though, because it had a cool video, and it was one of the songs that, although it was catchy and cheesy, it really showed how groundbreaking and iconic she was as an artist. And yeah, that's why she gets the number 463 spot. 462 goes to Triple Seis, a rapper from the Bronx in New York who worked with Big Pun and Fat Joe, and his song Harsh Realities. The song actually features a sample of Big Punisher in the chorus because he had passed, and after that Triple Seis kind of got screwed around for a few years. He got dropped by Fat Joe and the label, and he had to find his own way. Eventually he did finally get to record an album, Only Time Will Tell, which was quite good, and it really showed like what a lyricist he was in the group. He was very underappreciated because he wrote a lot of the original Terror Squad songs. But this song in particular, I picked it because it has a great beat. It really has some fantastic, intricate wordplay and lyrical skill from Triple Seis. And then it's paying tribute to Big Pun because he had passed, because they were like brothers almost. So for that reason, it gets the number 462 spot. Triple Seis, Harsh Realities. Number 461 goes to Aaron Carter with Aaron's Party. And the reason I picked this song is it is kind of a 90s catchy pop rap song that's similar to Will Smith in some ways, but it's very good. And Aaron Carter was actually very talented. He could sing and he did some acting and stuff, but he was often overshadowed because his older brother Nick Carter was in the Backstreet Boys, and he even had a solo album, but he was never as big without the Backstreet Boys. But all the attention was on them, so Aaron Carter often got overlooked. But if you actually listen to the song, it's got some really funny, like, teenage rebellion against the parents kind of lyrics. Like, it really reminds me of Will Smith's song, Parents Just Don't Understand. Like, it's totally got that kind of vibe, right? But it's actually a great song. It shows he really did have talent, and he didn't really get the credit or respect he deserved. So that's why it falls in at 461. 460 goes to Toby Keith with How Do You Like Me Now. I picked this song because it's got a very profound sense of pride to it. Like, if you strive and work hard to better yourself, eventually you can kind of prove to people that count you as the underdog wrong. And for that reason, like, yeah, he's got some pretty funny, catchy country songs like I Love This Bar and I Want to Talk About Me, Whiskey for My Men, Beer for My Horses with Willie Nelson. The duet's pretty good. But I picked this one because it had the most deep message to me. It had a really nice, catchy sound to it. But also, it's one of those songs I remember with sort of a feeling of nostalgia. Like, oh, that Toby Keith cat, he's cool. He's got his own style. But it's very funny, and it reminds me of Johnny Cash, which I'm a big fan of. For that reason, though, I gave Toby Keith the number 460 spot. 459 goes to West Coast rapper from Compton, The Game, and his song Church for Thugs. Now, The Game doesn't write his lyrics. A lot of people don't realize that. 50 Cent actually wrote that song, and 50 Cent wrote that song fantastic. Like, the lyrics, the chorus, the verses, everything is, I'm like, Wow. That is actually like it could rival some of 50's like best songs solo because he wrote the hell out of that shit. Plus, it's got a great beat. It's got Just Blaze producing it. It's got some very jazzy horns. It's kind of an epic song, like of my high school years too, like in memory and nostalgia, because I got to perform the song for my drama class with a few other students, and we dressed up like thugs and pretended like it was like a church for thugs, like we had fake guns, fake drugs, and just rapped the song, lip synced it, performed it. So for that historical nostalgia and just being a great rap song in general, that era for me, it falls in at 459. 458 goes to Jelly Roll Morton with King Porter Stomp. Now, King Porter Stomp is actually another very important piece that has been covered by lots of other artists, and often Jelly Roll gets overlooked historically because he made some outrageous claims that kind of angered other jazz artists of the time, who really looked at him as just an old school ragtime because he said, "Oh, I invented jazz." And I don't really believe that's true. I believe it was several artists of the time period all pitching in with ideas and created different styles, which would become that. But I do understand his historical significance, and his claim is based on the fact that he had, really started to publish a lot of what would become the earlier jazz pieces like King Porter Stomp. And it's sad how his life ended. He got stabbed, and he waited a long time in the hospital, so the wounds didn't heal properly, and he was very sick the rest of his life. But he was actually a very talented pianist and composer, and for that reason, I'm going to give him his respect at 458. 457 goes to blind pianist George Shearing and his song Pick Yourself Up, which he recorded many times. My personal favorite is the one he did with Nat King Cole, but it's a very beautiful, profound, and inspiring song that George Shearing wrote, and composed, because it really is a great song in the sense that no matter how much life might kick you down, you gotta pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. Because, that's just life. You don't really have a choice sometimes. And, for the way it's kind of like you can't give up, you just got to keep doing your thing. It's very inspiring and it's deep. And Nat sings it beautifully. George plays it really good on piano, and all his other versions are quite good too. But that's my personal favorite. For that reason, though, I will give it the 457 spot. 456 goes to Canadian rock singer Avril Lavigne and I'm With You. Now, she's had a lot of other hit songs, which her earlier stuff is the stuff I was digging more before she went mainstream and commercial. Songs like Skater Boy, Complicated. But I picked I'm With You because it has a very memorable quality. It's been used in movies. It's got a sad sort of melody to it too, but she sings it very beautifully, like a very nice range to her voice, and I felt like that was one of the last really great songs she made, along with Grip, before she transitioned more into mainstream pop rock versus the punk groove she started out with. But she is a very great singer and talented songwriter, so for that reason, though, I give Avril her due, and she gets 456. 455 goes to the Beastie Boys with their song Fight for Your Right to Party. Now, this song is that classic rock jam classic rock hip-hop jam, I should say, that really, it melded rock and hip-hop together. And it did it with a very mainstream wide appeal because you had the Beastie Boys, who were white guys, and they were actually the first white rappers for that reason to go mainstream, even before Vanilla Ice. They often don't even get the credit or respect because they're often looked as bordering more onto rock than hip hop. But they had some great lyrics, and they really had the teenage anthem of partying down in that song. The rock was great, and it's a very funny song. And they often don't get their due for it, but that's their biggest song, that's their best seller, and that song really helped bridge rock and rap very early on. So for that reason, I will give them 455. 454 goes to country singer Alan Jackson and his song Mercury Blues. Now, I really like this song because despite being a blues, he gives you so many different perspectives on such a beautiful subject, such as driving the Mercury, the desire of, wanting a car like that, the desire of, like, what would you do when you actually can? All the different perspectives, the funny little analogies he uses, it's very good. And it shows not only how great of a singer and a songwriter he was, because he could write with a lot of different influences. Like, despite being country, you hear the rock, you hear the blues in Alan Jackson's music, and that's why Mercury Blows Blues shows his roots, and that's why, for that reason, it shows what a very diverse and great artist Alan Jackson actually is. So 454. 453 goes to actor and singer Bing Crosby with his song Now You Has Jazz. This song is actually a duet that he did with Louis Armstrong. In fact, they performed it together on his show. Frank Sinatra was on the show. So was Rosalie Clooney. It was actually a very big event, and it was like breaking ground for the time to even have Louis Armstrong on a show like that with all this integrated people too. But Bing Crosby always loved and respected Louis Armstrong. He made the song because jazz influenced him and inspired him. In fact, he called Louis Armstrong the father of modern music, and he said that it died when he died. And for that reason, that's why Now You Has Jazz is almost paying tribute to him and all the jazz that came before him. It's a very beautiful historical song that signifies a lot of deep change. So we are going to give it 453. 452 goes to the very underrated and talented singer with I Wanna Be Bad by Willa Ford. Now, she is a very good singer, and it is a very cheesy pop song. Might have been why she was only a one-hit wonder. But the song actually showed how good of a singer she was, and she was very beautiful. She used her image to her advantage in a very competitive era. But what a lot of people don't realize is she was actually smart. She took all the money she made from that one hit, started a real estate company, and became a multi-millionaire after that, and was way more successful than she was with music. So that hit still gets played to this day. She's still making royalties off that. She doesn't have to record, but she invested in property and made so much other money. So as much as she presented herself in the video as being that stupid ditzy girl, she was actually smart, and she was playing everybody. She was bad all along. And for being so clever and actually talented underneath the flashy surface, I'll give her due at 452. Wrapping up tonight's presentation, 451, Love Fist, Dangerous Bastard. Now, a lot of people are like, Love Fist band? What? Dangerous Bastard? What kind of a song is that? Now, it actually appears in the video game Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And it's on the rock station, and you actually do a few missions in the video game where you basically help out this band. They're not a real band, but they were created by the video game makers who made a couple songs to have their own featured act. Now, despite not being real, the song is actually an incredible rock piece because it's got a very catchy rock guitar riff. The lyrics are humorous and priceless, and they're actually that edgy, catchy rock song that you're really surprised, for people from a game, it could be a number one rock song, minus the cursing. It's really good. So for that reason, I rounded off at 451. And that concludes our list for tonight. We will count down another 50 in the next episode of my top favorite 500 songs. And each episode you will get 50 further down till we reach number 1. So hope you enjoyed the presentation. Have a good night. Oyasumi Nasak, Buenas noches, and peace. Super Kami Guru Alucard.